Hey listeners, if you haven't joined Stitcher Premium yet, now is the perfect time, okay? Stitcher Premium gets you completely ad-free episodes of hundreds of shows like Comedy Bang Bang and WTF with Mark Maron and Bitch Sesh, It's a Real Housewives Breakdown. You also get 21,000 hours of exclusive content. New exclusive originals like Freedom with hosts Scott Aukerman, Lauren Lapkus, and Paul F. Tompkins are launching every week for Stitcher Premium members. If you love podcasts, you are missing out. Scott Aukerman himself hosting Comedy Bang Bang really brought me into podcasts. I wouldn't be here without that show. So you got to check this stuff out. Those are three of the funniest people in the world right now. When you listen to any ad-free episodes in Stitcher Premium, your favorite podcasters get paid. So help support your favorite shows and join Stitcher Premium today. For a free month of listening, go to StitcherPremium.com and use promo code Crucible.
Hello and welcome to Crucible Radio. Birds here. You have tuned in for part 2 of our interview with John Weisnewski, Josh Hamrick, and Kevin Yanis, aka some dudes from Bungie. Thank you so much for listening. I'll just tell you up top, this is kind of a different feel to this one. You know, last week we were talking about basically the nitty gritty of Warmind, talking about some very specific balance stuff, talking about the competitive playlist. The second half has got just kind of a different feel to it. We touched on some of that stuff. We've got a great lightning round asking and for the most part answering a lot of sort of small questions that we had. But this one is a little bit more, sort of abstract, talking about what makes a good game, what they see in a vague sense in the future of Destiny, both competitively, a possible tournament scene, and talking about some of the games that they grew up playing. So we hope you enjoy it. If you came here to find out the exclusive details of what's going to be in Forsaken, then unfortunately, this interview was recorded before Forsaken was announced. So we did not know any of that at the time. We've got some new stuff now, and I think even Hamrick mentions in here that we picked a less than ideal time to record the interview, in that some real exciting stuff was coming down the road, like multiple weapon slot stuff, right? Who knows? We didn't at the time. So it's not in here, but I think it's a real fun conversation. A couple small pieces of business before we get to that. First off, if you are looking for some other people to play with, if you are looking for a clan, if you're looking for something to do in Destiny aside from just grind the faction rally by yourself solo, then might I recommend come to discord.gg/Crucible Radio. Join our Discord. We've got a great group of folks. No matter what your skill level, if you like PvE and you're just dipping your toe into the PvP waters, well, guess what? You're welcome. If you're trying to go to the Lighthouse for the first time, we've got our Spire Puppers channel designed to take those fresh young Guardians who want so badly to see what it's like there. They'll help you get there and everything in between. But for the very near future, I'm very excited to announce we are playing a little game we like to call the Crucible Radio Faction Wars. You can pledge to one of our 3 clans, Future Warbones, Swain Orbit, or, my personal favorite, but maybe I'm biased, Birds Monarchy, and compete. It's all just for fun, but we're going to be having a couple little tournaments. We're going to be giving points for fastest nightfall completion, that kind of thing. Or if you just want to contribute, grind it out for your side, we're happy to have you. It's going to be a lot of fun. You'll meet a lot of great folks. You'll get to play with a lot of new people. And it's really going to be something. So come check it out. That's Crucible Radio Discord, discord.gg/Crucible Radio. And then next up, I want to talk about GuardianCon in Tampa, Florida, July 13th and 14th. Crucible Radio is going to be there, and we're going to be having fun. So we hope that you're coming out, you're making the trip. We hope that if you're making the trip that you'll want to come hang out with us. We're trying to plan together a meetup, something to that effect. We're figuring out the details, but we had a great time last year. Really amazed at the turnout last year. So if you would like to get involved, if you'd like to attend our meetup and maybe more, don't know yet, still figuring it out. But if you want to be a part of it, then please check out our GuardianCon channel in Discord. It's discord.gg/Crucible Radio. Bit of a theme today. And chime in. we want to know who's coming. We're going to have a real fun time, so come join us. All right, announcements out of the way. This is what you guys came here for. This is part 2 of our episode with Noosk, Hamrick, and Tocom11, a.k.a. Kevin Yanis. Just to set the scene, we took a little break. We were sort of talking off mic for a second, and coming back in, we were going to call this part of the break, but it was funny, so we left it in. And that'll take you right into us talking about 110 hand cannons. The 3-tap everybody wants to know. We'll see. I won't give anything away. Enjoy, and thanks.
I wasn't happy like I said I was. Wasn't happy like I said I was. Fighting all the time, crying all the time. They say the grass is greener on the other side, but I don't know what I'll find.
By the way, are you allowed to say bad words on this podcast?
Yes.
I don't know how much work it is on your guy, but I kind of want you to bleep me.
Yeah, well, like with a bunch of different wacky sounds
to make it just more pronounced. Because I just realized that I'm saying like get shit on and like fuck this like nonstop, and I have not filtered myself.
I believe the quote was, "I earned my ability to shit on you."
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, that's like.
Yeah. But it should be like a donkey, like
Like, I'm not actually, I don't care if this is on the mic or off the mic, but like back in the day, like in 1990s video game FPS design, like you're playing Quake, sweet, you spawn, all right, I'm gonna go get the rocket launcher. Somebody else got it before me. What happens? I die for the next 5 lives.
Yeah.
Because that guy earned the right to on me.
If you go back and play Shadowrun now, you're like, I spawn guy behind me with
teleported through a
katana.
floor,
Yes.
through an enemy,
It's like,
detonated in the air, teleported back.
which
to the
way
floor.
shall I go? It's just over.
And like whatever, to varying degrees, that's fun and not. But like, yeah, I was very much trained and raised in the way of like earning it, and so there's no concept to me of like this is how it should be.
In the way of the samurai.
You make it how it should be.
All right. I mean, so if there's like one bullet point here, and maybe this just falls under like it's coming, but I want to know if you guys specifically have anything to say about 3-tap hand cannons, right? Like, if you could boil down what a good chunk of the argument is, it's that you can only do that with the 110s. You have to land all crits. Like, there's no more AOS. You can't have that like dominant hand cannon alone meta anymore. Is that something that is in the cards? Is that a goal? I mean,
I want to say something somewhat provocative here.
do it. Andrew, can I get a hot take?
So yeah, I see the desires. I definitely see the posts online about 3-tap hand cannons, and it seems to be synonymous with like expressions of raw skill. And then I look at the arguments for why people don't use the 110s, and a lot of it comes down to they're really hard to use. Missing is super punishing, and then there's like comparable TTKs for less effort. And if you're really like to me. And I saw a Cammy Cakes video that like is also in line with this that I love it. You should watch it. I think he's talking about the Criminal's Dagger. If you're really married to that 3-tap hand cannons and you truly believe that it's because of this like cool expression of skill, then you should not be afraid of using a 110 and getting good enough to consistently land that 3-tap headshot. That is my hot take as a like old school FPS player. Like if 3-tap is your thing, you have a high skill way to achieve that today. Now, do we see the feedback? Yes. Are we going to action on it? Can't talk about that.
Even so, Greg checked in a thing today. I think we mentioned that. But even before Greg checked in a thing today, he checked in another thing another day that affects that, right? That may.
Oh yeah, yep.
And we've played it, and it's real good, and it feels nice. So.
Yep.
Wow. World's first. You heard it.
Yeah. Greg checked in some things.
The thing was checked in.
It was nice.
And it affected the other thing.
And
cool.
somebody went, ooh.
And John and I separately have been thinking about that problem.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is yeah. So yes, and like yes, I in some ways that thing exists already. In some ways we're going to make it better in the future. Depending what else happens along the way, maybe the answer is totally across the board 100% yes, it's coming back. But that's something that none of us know right now because we've got to play it and see where we're at.
And I think if you remove the 3-tap hand cannon from the equation and you just look at like the player sentiment that's underlying there, which is that I want to feel like I can face down seemingly insurmountable odds and like make a play or like do something clutch. Yes, a higher TTK may help some players do that, but it also might prevent some players from doing that because again, it's about time to live as well as time to kill. And also there are other things in the game right now that aren't a 3-tap hand cannon, but will absolutely increase your lethality or your survivability to make clutch plays in the game. So I do think that there is a fixation around hand cannons in this conversation because they're sweet. They're super sweet.
So sweet.
And they sort of like became like a very dominant play style for high skilled players in Destiny 1. But just because only some of them 3-tap and most of them 4-tap, it doesn't mean it's impossible to make plays.
This is sort of slightly on topic. There are things that you will see in the future that we are doing to the game to also address other topics of conversation amongst those groups of players who are capable.
You don't say.
Skill level. Yeah, like there's stuff we're gonna give people ways to manipulate what they have.
Yeah.
To play the way that they are asking to play now, right? And I think we're all pretty excited about.
I don't think we've ever taken more time to say less on Crucible Radio.
I know, this is awesome. We're gonna be very upset.
We can compare.
Before.
Yeah, we'll be able to talk about a lot more. Like, really, if anything, you blew this interview because you had it slightly too soon.
To possibly offer our own hot take and maybe to bring it back into some more specifics, since we love when you guys get specifics. Last week on this show, I think I used the term like recovery meta because, well, kind of like Noose just said, there's the time to kill and then there's the time to live. And there's so many options right now that kind of let you get your health back quickly, either post-kill or post-ability, like that hunter helmet that everyone is wearing.
Cheaters!
Swain the Titan, calm down. It's definitely had an effect on the flow of the fight. So what are your sort of goals with these options when it comes to the overall balance, especially with time to kill or time to live being where it is right now?
I feel like that's a great question for Claude.
It's a great question. Yeah, so this is how we do this with Nisk.
Well, we've been very hand-wavy. We can be super specific about this one. So the Hunter helmet was an exotic made by the team over at Vicarious Visions in close coordination with us. But I think for the most part, there's a number of people over here who thought maybe it's a little too hot. But in the spirit of trying to create more spiky gameplay and powerful atoms for players to collect, we ended up rolling with it. And I think some of the feedback is justifying some of the internal opinions over here that like, oh, maybe that was a little bit too strong. I know players are loving it. They love it.
I think two things.
But then, players like Swain, who are fighting against it a lot, are not loving it.
Right.
And it is doing an interesting thing to the combat right now.
We had, like, I specifically remember one, I'm going to say heated, but it's more like a buddy, like friend-to-friend heated conversation. But I think it was me and Victor and Grant and Noosk and Claude and Lisa were in the room, and they were providing some amount of feedback. But we were going back and forth. Like, I was worried it was too hot. Victor was strongly worried it was too hot. Noosk was somewhere in the middle, like, it's hot, but is this the thing we should be doing? Because our player's going to think this is cool, and how broken is it actually? And then Grant was like, I don't know, like, I think we should do this. Not necessarily because he didn't think it was broken, but because it felt like it could be the right thing to do for the game. And this was, just the four of us talking while Claude and Lisa listened in and gave specific opinions from time to time. But this was all like, what feedback do we give VV about this helmet? Do we tell them to change it? Do we not? And I think we just offered the feedback as opposed to saying, we should change or should not change this. I think we just sent over the like, hey, there were concerns.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think happened that I don't know who knew. We didn't know. I didn't know. But it did make me laugh. Was when I played through Warmind and it got given to me from one of the quests. It was like, oh no. I was unaware that every hunter in the game was going to have this exotic immediately. And so there are just things like that were constantly like, if you had to work real hard for that thing and not everybody had it, I'm not saying that would make it any better, but it would certainly make it different, right? It would certainly make it feel different than it does out in the wild right now. And so it's something we're looking at and trying to figure out a reasonable thing to do and go from there. But yes, it is something we consider. It is certainly like those conversations were had about whether or not that thing should work that way.
And to touch on something we talked about earlier, like I actually have no context here, but if I were to put myself in VV's shoes, like they did their due diligence as designers in that they received feedback from us. Mm-hmm. I imagine there was some amount of them that felt strongly about keeping it the way it was. And as I mentioned, like when you get into those deadlocks, you sort of try to use the tools in your toolbox, and ultimately, be it intuition or reference or data, whatever it may be, something led them to make the decision they made. And that was where we're at. Like whether or not it's resonating with the community, it succeeds, like we patch later, that's all to be seen, but that's part of the job, is making those decisions.
Yeah.
And they're usually hard decisions.
Yeah. And to capstone that too, like our relationship with the VV team, like is definitely like the Bungie sandbox team's relationship with the Vicarious Vision sandbox and investment team, I think would be really healthy. I have a tremendous amount of respect for those designers. Like they're awesome. And part of the intent is that we're going to be working with these people long term, right? They're an awesome studio. They really did a great job on Warmind in a lot of different ways. We plan on working with them for a long time. And part of working on Destiny for a long time is making choices, as Kevin said, and then shipping those choices and then reacting to that too, right? So that was in the spirit of being good collaborators and like welcoming them aboard, was like giving them the freedom to make potentially risky decisions and then having to examine what that does to the game and then make those adjustments in a future patch if they/we decide that they need to be tuned. So yeah, that's sort of like one of the guiding principles of like, yeah, we're just going to offer this as like strong feedback from people who've been working on this game for years. But that's all it is. Choice is yours, and then you guys live with that choice. You're in here with us now, and you have to help us maintain the health of this game.
You're in the cave.
And they've, like, we've had emails back and forth about, hey, there's these couple of things. What do you guys want to do about this stuff? So, like, emails that they sent to us that they started this conversations. And so, yeah, I think it's just, there was nobody there to catch us when we fell flat on our face many times. And so I think we want to try and catch them. And sometimes you need to be allowed to fall and or totally nail the landing and walk away from it a hero, right? Like it goes both ways. Like sometimes you're going to fail and sometimes you're not going to fail. And sometimes we're going to say you're going to fail and you totally don't fail, right? And like that's all these things are learning experiences for everybody involved.
Yeah. I'll say straight up, like I didn't think Huckleberry was a good idea for this release. Like doing a Tex Mechanica exotic for a small scale DLC like this, like I thought that was a really risky decision because the Tex Mechanica guns that we have shipped in the past, Last Word, Chaperone, and then honestly, Prospector didn't quite live up to that bar originally, right? And so I knew the bar was really high, and my initial advice to those guys was like, I would not do a Tex Mechanica gun. They were really excited about Huckleberry. We gave them a whole bunch of feedback and a whole bunch of, strongly worded direction about like, if you're doing Tex Mechanica, it's got to be flashy. It's got to have like spectacle. It's got to have, this like weird, like cool sci-fi Western element to it. And you really got to nail it. Like that's hard to nail. and you don't have a lot of time for this release. And they stuck to their guns on that, and I think the thing that shipped is going over pretty well right now with a lot of people. So to their credit, like they did an awesome job with that thing.
Yep. They got the reload.
They did.
Yep.
Look, folks, we got to take a break to talk about our sponsor this week, HelloFresh. It's a meal kit delivery service that shops, plans, and delivers your favorite step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy. You choose from 3 plans. You got classic, you got veggie, and you got family if you need more food. And each box is delivered right to your door in recyclable, insulated packaging and made up of fresh, responsibly obtained ingredients from carefully selected farms and high-rated, trusted sources. Plus, with the simple recipes outlined on pictured step-by-step instruction cards, you can feel confident in your cooking. There are even lots of one-pot recipes that require minimal cleanup, so you can spend less time meal planning and grocery shopping each week and get that time back to do more of what you love, like play Destiny. You see what I'm saying here? You see how this works? I got to eat some HelloFresh this week. I had some sweet as honey chicken. It had a nice little kick to it with some veggies and rice. It felt really fresh. It felt so easy. And all I had to do was open up the bag and just put it together. It was so simple. For $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, visit HelloFresh.com/Crucible30 and enter the code Crucible30. That's HelloFresh.com/Crucible30 and offer code Crucible30 for $30 off your first week of HelloFresh. Seriously, if you need something that just makes it simple, all you got to do is open the bag, put it together, learn how to cook in the process. We highly recommend it. Crucible30.
So I think we should lighten it up and do a lightning round.
All right.
In D1, Rusted Lands was the testing map. Lots of ranges, lots of routes, elevation changes, blah, 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 blah. What's the Rusted Lands of D2?
Midtown.
Downtown and Midtown.
Accurized rounds are great. They give you a range boost, but like Ricochet is magic. Is there some advantage Accurized has over Ricochet?
No idea.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
Great question.
Yeah.
All right. If Greg felt a sudden overwhelming desire to tweet about that, I know at least one person who cares
Does Greg
deeply
have a
about the
Twitter?
topic.
Okay. Greg does have Twitter. Yes.
Can you make an exotic power single shot grenade launcher?
Yeah, I can.
Like,
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Colony was originally single shot, and then whoops.
Now it's 2.
but you wanted to be heavy
Oh no.
specifically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The idea of archetypes for like a hand cannon like makes sense, right? Like lightweight, aggressive, whatever. For the SMGs, it's kind of harder to tell, and we got a new one with Warmind. Like, what's the identity for these new middle ground SMGs?
SMGs are a really, really hard archetype to build subfamilies into because the makeup of an SMG is so similar to an auto rifle that if you slow down the rate of fire too much, it just feels like a crappy auto rifle. And if you push the range out too much, it just feels like a way too good auto rifle. And so they kind of like sit in this like
Super tight.
very specific little corner of the weapon universe. So yeah. And that's the new SMG archetype was a Vicarious Visions initiative, and that would be a good question for their design team.
For what it's worth, the rank 1 glory reward is one of those aggressive frames SMGs, and they're pretty fucking cool.
But I think
Imminent Swarm.
the gameplay intent, I believe, that we landed on with the aggressive SMG is you just don't really care about aiming. It's all about players who move fast, get close on an enemy, and then just basically like unload as many rounds as possible, like, and then maybe close it up with the melee kill and move on to the next guy, right? Like, it's like aggressive is meant to be a nod to the play style of a close quarters player.
Dig it.
Are there any projectile weapons in D2, or is everything hit scan, and why or why not?
Rockets and grenades.
Rockets and grenades?
So no more sidearms or...
Nope. I don't think so. Yeah.
We changed fusions.
Fusions.
Yeah. Fusions are
hit
hit
scan
scan. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they feel awesome. Okay.
So the main, if you want reasons, I can give you one good one, which is...
Oh, they want reasons?
I think they might want reasons. I'm not entirely sure, but one main one is that the way networking works is if you do a non-hit scan weapon, you kind of want the projectile to be chubby, to be fat, and give you room for error in the networking to make up for it.
The new Skyburner's Oath. Hipfire.
Yeah,
is a slow-moving projectile.
Yep.
Okay.
And those are a great example because they have AoE on them when they land, and so they basically give you some amount of fudge. Yeah, there's some fudge in things. But things like the old fusion rifles did not. They were very tiny projectiles that you either hit or did not hit, and they don't do as well over.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the pivot to hit scan on the fusions was partially to make them super viable in the power slot.
It was to make them more viable and to clean them up. I think they're a lot easier to balance now than they used to be because, again, it was hard to know what you were going to get all the time.
Yeah, and if we're asking players to make a decision between a rocket launcher and a fusion rifle, we need to make a fusion rifle way stronger than it was in D1. Yep. So, yeah.
In private matches, we don't have a control for light level or power ammo timing anymore. Was that like specifically a dig against me, or do you have some good reason for that?
1,000%. It was a dig at you. No,
good to know.
No. Private matches was actually a VVGM. We supported them where we could, but that was all owned on them. We gave them some feedback on some of the options that we wanted to see gone. The reason light level isn't there is just across the board in Destiny 2, light level is not on in PvP, so it wasn't something that we like a flow that we had tested and proved was good and also viable in Destiny 2 when we did private matches. So that was not like an option we were willing to turn on without knowing that it would not break the game. And we already had with Warmind there was a considerable amount of PvP already happening that we wasn't one of the things we wanted to prioritize, at least for the initial offering. But like we're looking at all of the options. We know there's like a bunch of stuff that people want, and we're thinking about what our path forward is in private match. Like it's not just a blast it out there and be done with it. I think there's more support to come in the future, but we're not talking about any of that today.
Right.
None of it.
No.
Okay, well, we wanted to talk a little bit to Kevin about this sort of thing, but also all three of you, and maybe you guys can answer as gamers for this one rather than as devs, but what do you guys think, or do you have any feelings on competitive rule sets?
Oh, boy.
Yes. Do we want to put the hot take here too?
Yeah, I mean, there has been, now that private matches are back, those rules kind of resurface, and there's quite a few of them in D1. There's been maybe a change of approach in D2, but what do you guys feel about that?
Andrew, roll that beautiful hot take footage.
Please, God, please roll that. I feel very strongly about competitive rule sets. As I mentioned before, I'm like a pretty core like FPS player, and I follow esports pretty avidly. And one thing that bugged me about past Bungie games like the Halo games is that there was always this divergence between the core game and the competitive game. And while I understand the reasons being, it actually, like in my opinion, is more damaging to the scene than it is helpful, because you diverge what the viewer experiences versus the competitor. And when you watch something, I think the fantasy I have, and I think the fantasy other people have, is that I can do that too. Like I can cue into matchmaking and try that at least, or like it gets me excited to play and I want to compete at that level in some form. And when you diverge the rule sets enough, then that's no longer a path forward for people. You're actually diminishing the participation in those tournaments. You might diminish the viewership as well. And like we've seen games trend away from that with like, especially with esports today. Like the core game is often the esport, like in Overwatch, in League of Legends, in Dota, in Counter-Strike. Yeah, even Halo has gone so far to marry it. And like, yeah, it's hard. Let me start there. Like it's hard for people to do that, and at times can create competing goals between the like competitive scene and the core game. But when it works, it is magic. When I go watch OWL and I see when I watched Seagull like destroy with Genji, I'm like, I'm gonna do that too, and I can't. But the fact that I can go into competitive and like have that fantasy and there's nothing standing between me and trying is amazing.
One of the biggest complaints about Overwatch League, though, is that like they're behind a season. Like, so you can't necessarily go in and do that. And it only proves your point further that there's an issue where they like people want to have the same experience as they see in tournaments.
And like, as someone who competed in Halo 3 and someone who like was a big follower of MLG in Halo 3, the toxicity between MLG Halo 3 players and Team Slayer Halo 3 players is not great either. It's like not great for the community to feel like you're playing the real version of the game versus the other people. Like it makes it harder to talk about, and makes it harder to feel like a community in, and it makes it harder to participate in. So while I appreciate any and everyone who runs a Destiny tournament, I will watch them. I love them. Keep going. I would love it even more if it was the whole, as we like to say, the whole buffalo. It was the whole game. Like one of the things that I didn't necessarily love about the D1 tournaments was removing some of the things. And like, yeah, there was some spicy shit D1, and there was stuff that even I would claim, like I would go to Josh's desk and say like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. But it is the game. The game is the game is the game. Like, you go to trials and people unapologetically stick you in the face and kill you in one shot, and that was the game. And so when I watch these tournaments, I want to have that fantasy for better or for worse. So yeah. I mean, I've seen some of the rule sets come out for the D2, and I am a little saddened to see the approach continue. And while I understand the arguments and where these arguments are coming from in regards to actually making the divergence, like if those things are truly problems, we're committed to fixing those things. And making them better. And I don't think there's any one thing right now that's like, this is so painfully broken that it has to be removed from tournament play. Like, even the fucking colony, I believe, has a counter. So
I kind of loved it, like, to think that you could go back and watch a replay of a match from like 2 years ago and be like, oh, that was during the Vigilant Swing meta.
Exactly. Right? Like, and there's some funness there that's rampant in even Overwatch. You go watch a triple tank meta video and you're like, oh yes, the good old days. Yep.
And we've talked about this on Twitter. Like, you and I both jumped on a thread, and like the one thing I do think is cool, and I'm totally behind, is like the
team composition.
If you want to say you only get one of these things per team, I think that's brilliant. Like, I think that's a great way to throw your tournament together. And then composition matters. What you run matters. You can't just all run Vigilant Swings or Gravitons, right? Like, you're picking and choosing who needs to run what, and that is super interesting to me, and does it in a way that isn't running the whole game.
And like, ideally, like, if that's the silver bullet, if that's the thing that's so fucking cool that these tournaments are like the best thing, like, God, I hope that as a company we'd see that and try to foster that experience internally. But yeah, like, I'm more interested in things that create more choices and more strategy and more dynamics than things that take those away.
Yep, 100%.
And I understand some of the rules and bans. Like, I understand where they're coming from. I don't think there's like negative sentiment there. But I mean, as far as Colony goes, can I get a hot take real quick? The true counter to Colony in the competitive scene is to control the heavy ammo. If you see a team coming at you with Colony, then you know it's a priority to control those heavy ammo spawns. They come in on a cadence. It's not random. You know where they are. Like, you need to form up your team and make sure that they don't get that advantage. And if you are controlling that heavy ammo and they are running Colony, then it means that you've probably got some pretty good exotics to use against those teams that they don't have access to. Anyways, that's my hot take.
This is very interesting. I believe Noosk has invoked the Get Good scrubber.
Well, I mean, but it's competitive, right? Though, like, I understand the grief about Colony in quick play because there's heavy ammo everywhere, but there's also, like, it's quick play. It's not meant to be a competitive experience. It's meant to be like, go have fun with your toys. And then as far as like the rules for the tournament scene, I think I largely agree with Josh and Kevin. And unfortunately, I'm so close to the game that I don't think I can afford a player opinion about this. Like, it is definitely like, I work on Destiny as a sandbox designer opinion. But it is that, like, we play so much PvP in our game. Like, we play all the activities, but we really love and play a lot of PvP. And I think we build stuff with competitive play in mind. And so, yeah, like, when I see things, I guess, like, another way to say it is that I believe that doesn't matter what you're running. in Destiny, the highest skill will always win. Players of a higher skill or a team composed of higher skill players will always end up winning over like a best of 7. Maybe just like there could be teams of equal skill where one team has a better day that day. I mean, you guys' show goes into this all the time, like all the mind games that come into like getting a win, like, you know, the mental state that you're in, your emotional state, how you're playing in that moment, all the stuff that stacks up against you in a split second and how you react to it. But I think at the end of the day, with all the atoms that Destiny has to offer, a higher skill player will always win. Not like every single time, but
in aggregate,
in the end of a season,
overall,
or at the end of a tournament, the higher skill. I mean, we design elements on the sandbox team that have to work with the whole game, and competitive PvP is one of those things that's just part of the game. And so it is a constraint space that we have to design within, and we are not making a game where we intentionally don't care about any activity, competitive PvP or raids, or just casual, like I'm farting around on EDZ doing public events. Like we have to take in every single one of those elements into account when we're building a gun, a super, a grenade. And so, yeah, because we hold that belief, and even if one of us sucks at our job, we have 10 of us to keep the other person in check, right? Like,
he's talking about
I think I can confidently say that like we do build balanced atoms that work within a competitive setting. And I have to, if I believe in myself at all for doing this job, I have to hold that belief, right? So,
and there's like a couple of things I want to say on this subject. Like, I want to go back all the way to the colony thing, which is like, I don't think people have realized that pulse grenades kill colony robots. So like, there's a number of times where I've
furious typing.
Oh shit, for real?
I'm fucking yeah, dude. I'm like terrified. I'm running away, and I'll have one of my Striker Titan buddies just lay down a pulse grenade down on a bottleneck, and I'm totally safe from colony now. And like that, like I'm pleasantly surprised every time. It's still something that I'm trying to learn. There's a thing that we were talking about in terms of like letting like the triple or quadruple bubble Titan stack, like letting that fester for a tournament, and then the next tournament comes in the counter. There's a lot of good reference for that, especially if you look back in like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 days, where there was just dominant team compositions. And like I'll put one out. Most recent example, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Chris G is using a dominant Morgan level 1 super strat, and it's dominating everyone. And Justin Wong, who is notorious for picking a off-meta team, puts so much work into his team that not only does he beat Chris G, but he does it in this dominant 1v3 comeback style that is like one of the top Evo moments. And that doesn't happen if the persistent threat and challenge of this dominant strategy isn't there. If we take away all the sharp edges, then there's nothing for people to like try to figure out how to not get cut by them.
Yeah.
Like it is a forcing function on the community to figure out what to beat. And maybe there are times where there are degenerate strategies and that's terrible, but I don't think we're there. And I would love to actually see a world where we enable the game to put pressure on the community to come up with creative solutions to problems.
Yeah. And I think another way of looking at that too, which is awesome, and it's a great point, is that if you look at other esports games that have, you know, healthy tournament scene, like, you know, games like Dota that all like in Dota there's tournaments happening all year round, and then that culminates in the international. And like I watch StarCraft 2 all the time, and like StarCraft there's tournaments happening all year round, and that culminates at BlizzCon. You'll see a player or a team execute a really interesting strategy and then like clean up a tournament, right? But you know there's 10 tournaments before you hit the world final that year, right? Before you get the real cup that matters, right? The one that everyone is sort of like looks at as like the World Series or the Super Bowl of the sport. And so, yeah, like in the world of a healthy esports scene, I think I would hope that we could be a little bit more like brave about just letting some things go out there to see like, and what would happen if if the strategy just like cleaned up a tournament, but you know there was 3 more tournaments before you got to the end of the year before the true champion is crowned. Or before the next patch came out, right? So yeah, that's a really good point, Kevin. And yeah, before we wrap up the conversation, we should really just say that we do not want to discourage anyone from running a Destiny 2 tournament, like especially the three of us sitting right here right now. Yeah. It's like it's all we want from the game. Like we want it so bad for the game to be played in a competitive way, and like to be able to go home on the weekend and like watch people do a tournament of our game is just like such a fucking dream come true. Like it is just insane. Like, and I just like the fact that it's happening at all just has us all over the moon. Yeah. Like we're so excited.
You want to host a tournament? You do what you want.
Okay. You do what you want. Your rules. Yeah. There's one last thing I want to say, and it's not really related to tournaments, but it is, I think, something that a listener would pick up on. We talk about competitive, the playlist, a lot about the competitive offering, and that's kind of how we view it internally. And I know to listeners at home, there are gaps in that playlist for experiences that they want. So I don't really want anyone to listen to this and say, oh, they think Countdown and Survival is the best, most competitive way to play Destiny. Like, no, like it's certainly what it is today, but we also recognize that there are things that are missing. There are like maybe there's a version of competitive control out there that's totally fucking awesome. We know people want more objective modes. There's more space to occupy there in the competitive arena. We recognize that. But internally, when we think about like the most skillful or the most trying or the most what's the word I'm looking for, the most competitive version of Destiny, we want to represent that in the competitive playlist. We want that to be the place to go. So when people think about what Bungie's vision for competitive Destiny looks like, we hope that playlist is representative.
So you guys need to get your own damn podcast because you love talking. And I've been trying to jump in here for so long. Kevin, I've got something that I'm giving you 10 seconds on to respond to, and that's it. It's a hot take. It's the last hot take.
Fuck. Okay.
How do you feel about banning controllers in tournament play on PC?
Oh, fuck. You weren't kidding. I don't like it. That's my 10 seconds. If you want me to go in more, I totally can. Look.
Fit it in the 10 seconds. You got 10 seconds.
Okay. The game is the game, regardless of platform. We wouldn't put something out there that inherently gives someone else another advantage over another. Like, we believe this is the best version of game wherever you're playing it, and we don't like it when...
And there you go.
And Call of Duty are a bunch of babies for not doing it.
Yeah, like, put this on the record. Like, he's totally right. You can play a professional Street Fighter tournament. You can go to EVO, show up, and make your way to Justin Wong on a controller versus a fight stick or vice versa. Like, that is...
If you could make your way to Justin Wong with a Rock Band controller, they will let you
do that. Yeah. And honestly, the possibility space for a PC player to absolutely fucking ruin a controller player is infinite. It is as good as you can aim. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who doesn't believe that, take 10 seconds, go look up Shroud playing Destiny 2 and see what that man was doing with a hipfire cold heart with just his ability to aim. Like, I don't... Yeah.
Link in the show notes.
So, I digress. In my opinion, and how I know Grant worked with the PC team and worked on the PC SKU, when we put out the PC version of Destiny and we made the conscious decision, because this is something that came up during development, to leave aim assist as it was in PvP, we believed the trade-offs were such that players would either be equal or honestly PC players would have a foot up. And for the reasons I described, I believe the skill ceiling on a PC player's mouse and keyboard is greater than that on a controller. And controller's awesome. I play controller. I love it. But I know at the end of the day, I will never be able to do what Cammy Cakes does. I will never be able to do what Shroud does. And I fully expect if I go against either of those two, that I will get shit on and they will have earned it.
Bringing it back around. Well, I think we've got our episode title right there. I want to come back to something that you guys teased a little bit earlier, and that's thinking about the future. I mean, you talked about the gear randomization a bit, sort of talking about the summit. But there's one thing in particular that when we saw it show on the roadmap is like, what the fuck? And I know you guys probably can't tell us anything, but just like, Just give us a sense of what
Give
what
us
your
some
goals
hype.
are,
We love
what your
some hype.
philosophy is, something to get hyped about.
Just hype.
What's-
None of what Bird said. Hype.
All right, fine. What is up with the weapon slot changes? That's like some big shit. What is this?
Can I do
Tell
this?
me.
I need to vent something out.
Yeah. We'll let the non-sandbox designer answer
Yeah.
the sandbox
All right,
question.
you
All right,
ready
go.
for this? This
All
is
right,
going to be
fine.
fucking
Deal.
awesome. Today,
And maybe stricken it from the record.
Greg checked something in.
You can cue that on the record. That's fine. So
But seriously, right? Like you changed it up going to D2 in a big way. I mean, is this going back to D1? Is this abandoning D2 for something totally different? Is this an evolution of what we're doing? Just like give me some direction to look here.
We're setting up a new future by combining blockchains
It
to
is-
synthesize in user interface and create a
Synergy.
better future for tomorrow by
Never
using.
mind.
I honestly
All right,
didn't
no,
think he meant
I got you. I got another one. You ready? Yesterday, I checked something in.
Well,
I mean, it is an evolution. I will say that, and it won't be long.
There we go.
It won't be long before it won't be long.
I mean, I think that about does it.
I think before we wrap up, I would like to quickly give a shout out to Scott Kankelberg,
Yep.
who sets up anytime Bungie talks to the outside world. He does a bunch of work on the back end. He's done a certain amount of work for every time we've talked to you guys, and then poor bastard ends up just sitting here surfing the internet while we blow hard out of our mouths. So thank you, Scott. You make the magic happen.
Confirm, like, there's been a last minute, oh my God, we didn't get the download. Is this episode going to come out? And like Scott fucking came through to make it happen. So yes, thank you, Scott. The real hero.
True hero.
All right. Well, we've made it to the end, and I'm sure, as tired as we might be, we've said a lot. I'm sure there's folks out there that would love this to be 5 hours long. But you make everyone happy when you give us this knowledge, this info. It's always so cool for the three of us to learn more. That's what we're here for. That's what
It
we
also
started
gives
this
us
for.
a week off usually.
Yeah, and no recording this weekend for us. Great. Thank you guys for coming on the show, Noosk for returning, and Josh and Kevin for coming on for the first time, not really knowing how we might take it, but you guys were awesome, and we really appreciate all this information.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
guys. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And hopefully we don't scare anyone off for too long. We can maybe have you guys back when there's all that juicy goodness that you're not allowed to talk about today out in the open.
One day I'll tell you what Greg checked in. Maybe.
Next time on Crucible Radio.
I'm already like bracing myself for the Reddit posts. I'm like, he told us to get good.
You don't need a dev to tell you to get good when you have Crucible Radio, because that's what we say.
I actually kind of hope they dig up my stats. I'm ready for this.
Kevin can.
I've
walk the
prepared.
walk. That's fair.
Let's go.
All the reasons you wanted me to stay are irrelevant now.
Well, folks, that does it for our two-parter Bungie interview. We hope you learned something. We hope that you have a better understanding of how things are done and the philosophies that go into it. And we are all very excited to see how things evolve and change as they always do, especially hitting September. I'm so freaking stoked for the DLC. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you for listening. By the way, don't forget, like Bird said at the beginning, a couple things. We got Guardian Con 2018, baby. We will be in Tampa, Florida. We want to know if you're going to be there too. Sound off. And we're really excited, and we may have a few things planned if we can pull it off. We'll see. If you're looking to play with people, or if you're looking to participate in the Crucible Radio Faction Wars, hop into our Discord, discord.gg/Crucible Radio. Join up. You can play with anyone. We are doing a full-fledged faction wars. You don't have to be in our Bungie Net clans. You can just pledge your loyalty. We'll trust you, and we're gonna see who wins. Future Warbones would be great. Anyways, yeah, hop on in. We can have another fun week. Lots of activities involved in that. It's sort of it's an all-encompassing thing. So I promise you will not be shooting an ogre in a lost sector on Titan at all. I promise. So yeah, let's see. It'd be really fun to do a big community event and have a nice turnout. So join up on that Discord, and we'll see you there. Thank you for listening. Here's to the future.
And all the reasons I wanted you to change are irrelevant now. You're irrelevant. Irrelevant. Now. All the reasons you wanted me to
If you enjoyed the music on this episode, you should go check it out. This band is called Once an Empire out of Sacramento, California. You can find them at onceanempire.com, or you can like on iTunes or Spotify. They're everywhere. Go find them. And hey, if you would like to hear your music featured on Crucible Radio, it all starts when you send us an email, crucibleradio@gmail.com.